Dungeons & Dragons, D&D monster tactics. From the perspective of the DM, utilizing the monsters on the table for that encounter to offer the greatest challenge to the players. We're going to do our best to take out the players. We're going to do our best to make them earn that challenge rating, earn that treasure, earn that experience. And in this vlog, we're going to explore the Basilisk, an iconic D&D monster, a deadly D&D monster because it has the trifecta of hit points, physical attacks, and turning players to stone. The idea of to be able to petrify them. And this unique combination means for the challenge rating 3 seems a little bit low. It wants to be more like a 4 or a 5, especially if it's supported by other monsters, or especially if it's kind of the Medusa situation, which is in a lair, in ruins, the players... I'm not talking about surprise, where it gets a surprise round. That can be deadly too. Any monster is deadly with the surprise round. But kind of the Basilisk being able to hunt around and engage the players, not just like on an open battle mat or an open field. Very, very deadly. Very, very effective. So we're looking at an armor class of 15, natural armor. Not the hardest thing to hit, not the easiest at its challenge rating. If we're playing that party appropriate, players should hit most of the time. I mean, this makes sense given the speed and the size. We've got 8d8 hit dice, which is going to give us 52 hit dice, 20 feet speed. Not necessarily the fastest, but it doesn't need to be. This is what we see often as a DM, the first thing that we want to keep in mind with our targets, and the Basilisk does a great job with this. You see monsters that have a non-physical attack, in this case, the petrifying gaze of 30 feet. So you're going to count that out. That's not that far. If we're utilizing 5-foot blocks for movement, if we're on a battle map or pushing that out. But the range is actually much farther. And this is something that we want to use to surprise our players. It's movement plus gaze range. So the effective range, the effective radius is really 50. Once that plays out, what this means is if you can get the players in the party moving, you'll see some players think they're safe. They're calculating. They think they're safe, but they're not. Tactically, and this isn't cheating, I mean, the players are going to look. Tactically, round 1, if the Basilisk doesn't move and it tries to hit its gaze, it's going to count out the range. And this is true of any type of effect that a monster might have. The other players are going to calculate if they're out of that range, okay, I'm safe. Next turn, if it moves, then you can utilize the range even further and maybe catch literally flat-footed those rogues, those wizards, backline fighters, missile weapon type fighters, pushing that out and utilizing that perspective. Now, the other thing that's really interesting is assuming that you can deal with the gaze and fight that out, then now we get into its bite and the attacks that are there. Now, it's only one target, but it's going to hit you, and it's going to do this duality of actual physical damage, 2d6, and then it's going to hit you for poison damage for some reason. And this is something that's changed and new to this edition of D&D, but it's got the base physical damage, and then it's got the poison damage. This means it's effective. It's engaging and effective at multiple layers. So at that challenge rating, if someone's got some damage reduction and they bring down the base attack damage, or if Arcane has up some sort of protection to bring down the physical damage, the poison's going to bypass that. You're going to hit them with the poison. That, with the gaze combined with 52 hit points, that's a decent amount of hit points. It's got bite. Now, what's fun with the Basilisk, and I encourage you to pull in this narrative, so this is also specifically for this monster, but also for other templates, pulling in fun what-if things. So if the Basilisk is out in an open field, it's going to still do some damage. It's going to be hitting up the gaze. It's going to be doing things, trying to gaze at you. It's going to try and close and maul you and claw you and bite you and do all that. But the players will be able to move out of that range. They know where it is. They're going to be able to hit it. They're going to be able to utilize magics on it. Imagine the lair that it's set up in if it's a ruined temple or an underground cave. Places where the Basilisk can move in and out and at least through blocking of physical objects, engage one or two party members if it's a standard party of 4 to 6 and stay out of movement or stay out of range of other players. So the chess-like tactics of this monster make it especially fearsome. But also utilizing, and this you'll have to build your adventure. There are certain monsters that pair well together. Monsters have interesting relationships. Survival in the dungeon, survival in the D&D ecosystem. What if there was like a goblin riding a basilisk and the goblin had like just a crossbow with some sort of poison on it or some sort of effects, or more likely a goblin cleric, well, shaman, or a goblin magic user, some sort of monster that could ride a monster and use effects to aid that monster. How could we tie that into the narrative? And in selecting monsters to ride the monster to help that monster use its monster effects, stuff that could throw out web, that could throw out paralysis, that could slow down the movement ability of the party, combined with the natural elements of the Basilisk, that makes it even deadlier. When you do something like this, and I do this all the time with the Basilisk, when you do that, you do have to fair is fair. You do have to up the challenge rating. You do have to alter the treasure types. You're going to give more experience. I also find in groups of D&D that are made up of veteran players, they played D&D for a few times. They might be playing a lower level character, but they faced a basilisk before. So when I describe this creature, when I describe this monster, what it looks like, I'm not going to say, hey, it's a basilisk on whatever page it's on, page 24. In the monster manual, no, I'm going to describe what it looks like and how it moves, and its eyes are glowing and just all this amazing narrative. Many players that have faced it before are going to be like, okay, they know what it is. I can't stop that knowledge from them knowing. I can't stop them from adapting the tactics, but having a monster ride another monster and complement another monster's monster effects means you can mess with your players that already know what it is. And often not for that big a challenge rating bump and that big of a treasure type of jump on there. Certainly an iconic D&D monster. And I want to encourage monsters like this template that certainly do physical damage, but they have the what if of other effects. How can we use these to really make the party make them earn that treasure and that XP?